What up, chat? How's it going? How is everybody doing? What's the latest? Keep the XP of please. What does that mean? What does that mean, SML? I mean, sent directly to us would be ideal, right? As long as there's a clearinghouse for them. As long as they live somewhere forever. And you would have access to them?
Which position?
Okay. All right. Hello, everybody. Hi, guys. We're just chatting with Lisa in my ear. I'm not talking to myself. Zoran. Is that right? SML. Keep the XP of please, Gotti and Lisa. I don't know. I mean, I don't want anybody gamifying that. SML. Freedom Face. What's up? YouTube has an XP feature. You get more XP when you talk. Hi. Of course you've got the answer. Thank you. XP was a Windows version. I do remember that. Did you just say, I think I'm losing my mind? I don't know. Did I? I hope not. Where's Lisa? Lisa, you there? There she is. Lisa is there.
I'm here.
There, next to Sean.
Right next to
What
Sean.
up, Lise?
Sean's
How's
here.
it going?
Todd's here.
Yes.
Liz is over there.
Hi, everybody.
Everybody's here. The gang's all here.
All right. Gang is all here. And Freedom Face is asking, is Tom back in the United States? Is Tom back in the United States?
Tom
I think he
Yamas?
is, right?
Probably not quite yet.
Hopefully he's taking it. I hope if he is in the air, I hope he's taking a nap. He has been just everywhere with some incredible reporting from Beijing.
They said he literally hit the ground running on, I want to say Monday.
He's unstoppable.
Yeah, he's been really working his butt off.
Love to see it. Yeah, his reporting has been so good. Yep, Tom was in China. Let's see, Paul, thank you for those prayers. We join you in them for peace and safety. Tamara, what are y'all doing, man? Well, is it Tamara or Tamara? We are getting ready for the news here. We are putting the final touches on the show. We've got an hour-long show coming up in just a bit. And we are going to walk you through everything starting at 5 o'clock on the West Coast, 8 o'clock on the East Coast. If you're just scrolling through TikTok or YouTube or maybe Twitch, and you're like, I wonder what's going on in the world. Guess what? We got you covered right here. We're going to tell you everything. And the big story that I think everybody's going to be talking about very soon, we're going to lead with it. I haven't seen anybody else lead with it, but I think we should lead with it, is possible indictments coming down against one of the leaders of Cuba, Raul Castro, the brother of Fidel Castro. It looks like the United States Department of Justice has been looking into these indictments, according to sources telling NBC News, and the implications there could be massive. And all of this comes as the island of Cuba has been facing some very difficult hardships because of a de facto embargo. The terror, the trade sanctions, the fact that they've been cut off from oil, from what used to be Venezuela's, steady supply. Then the United States arrested Maduro, snatched him, took him back to the United States. So the question is, like, could we possibly see something like that in Cuba, and what that could mean? I don't know if you watched yesterday's show, but the CIA director was in Cuba yesterday. The CIA, secretive CIA, they took pictures of the director there in Havana meeting with different officials and then posted it for the world to see. So I don't know what's going on behind the scenes. We're not even sure about what's happening in front of the scenes. But there's a lot of questions, and we've got some experts that we're going to be talking to. Ryan Riley's also reporting on it, so we're going to be checking with him. Let's see. Pachanga, is that real? Most Canadian provinces? I haven't heard about that. We're going to have to take a look at that. That's interesting. That's called harm against humanity. Interesting take. Freedom Face. Oh. Let's see. I was listening. What happened to the Chinese mayor spy, too? Yeah, we covered that. And that is a big, big case out here in California. Let's see. My favorite segment on Top Story is Binge-Worthy. Did you hear that, Lise? Binge-Worthy. SML wants us to do a Binge-Worthy. Maybe we should start doing Binge-Worthy on Fridays. No, that would be encroaching on Tom's great idea. We are still buying a lot of Canadian stuff. That's true. Yeah. Including, and I know this is stereotypical, but maple syrup. Like, we're very, very particular about our Canadian maple syrup. And if there was some sort of disruption to the maple syrup supply in our house, people would be very, very angry. Hello, Brian. I see an alien emoji. You human? Because if you're not, we would like to speak to you about some disclosure that's about to happen, hopefully. Especially lumber. Yes, lumber and everything that goes into construction around here. Let's see. Is the iPad charged? Dude. Pachanga. No, it's not. And you know what? You probably just saved the stream. Let's plug you in, shall we? Gosh, you're so great. What would I do without the stream? What's up, Brazil? Brazil. Emanuela, great to see you. I forget, where in Brazil are you watching from? Is it Sao Paulo? Is it Rio? OS verification laws.
Now let's bring in Ryan Riley, who's been following this for us. Ryan, I imagine this is something that the DOJ has been considering over the last 3 decades.
Hey, how's it going? How you feeling? What's the latest?
What could their case look like?
We have trust issues
it's really
with
interesting
iPad
because
charging. Yeah, I don't blame you. Once you get burned by the battery, you never forget. Kat, hi Kat. Tomorrow, I knew it. The one you're looking. Interesting. Got it. Okay. It's dusty, it's dry. Yes, it did, especially this time of year. Is it a long weekend in the United States? I mean, not for us. We're working on Sunday. We're going to be traveling to Seattle for a secret story that we're going to tell you about very, very soon. No, but he's as smart as AI. Smarter. Mug. I don't know. I have no idea. If it appears, I'll show you. Not this weekend. Mac. Big production. Big W. Having production in the house, too. Like when you guys are live. Yeah. That's very true. I hate the Seattle story. You don't know what the Seattle story is yet. Actually, you might hate it. Who knows? Hi. Memorial Day's in a few weeks. Helmuth. Sarasota County, Florida? Hey, how's it going, Florida? Florida on YouTube. SML, I think you're down in Florida too, right? In the long term, produce value. I hope you're right, Freedom Face. Let's see. Next weekend is the big 3-day. Next weekend, that's right. Oh, wow, that's coming up so fast. I didn't even realize that. Stitch lives on. Austin here? Brian, are you in Austin? We got to make it out there pretty soon. Actually, I think we are. Actually, I think we're going to be out in Austin for a very certain reunion. Do you guys know what I'm talking about? I don't know if we're allowed to say yet, but there's going to be a Texas reunion of sorts. You guys know what I'm saying? Anybody know about the reunion that's going to be happening in Austin that we may or may not be a part of? Oh, interesting that you ask about football, Freedom Face. Look, I'm not going to lie to you. I'm not going to pretend like I'm this big, huge football aficionado because I'm from New Mexico. And New Mexico, we had a choice. It was the Denver Broncos or the Dallas Cowboys. And you want to know something? Neither one of them were New Mexican. So I was there stuck in this sea of Denver Broncos jerseys and Dallas Cowboys jerseys. And I chose to just wait until New Mexico got a football team. And not to ruin the story, but New Mexico did not get a football team. So if I had to say, maybe the Seahawks, but that's my relationship with football. What about you guys? Freedom Face, who's your favorite football team? The Raiders? I mean, we do have a football team here in Los Angeles. I probably should, jump on. The Bungles? I love the Cincinnati Bungles. But they're playing in Madrid? That's wild. Marsh? I love that sentiment. And you know what? I strongly, strongly agree. I don't have many opinions, but you know what? I agree there, 100%. The Niner gang, all right. The Jets, the Tigers. Ooh, Lions for life? Is that why you're Lions for life? Because lions and tigers are, I think, different species. Are they? I don't know. Suzanne, good to see you. Dell Smith, what's up? Falcons rise up? Yeah, come on. Where's it at? And CT is very, very sad. We've done a lot of reporting on that. Guys, listen, if you're just joining this stream and you're like, what is this ramble? It is the ramble before the news. In 2 minutes, we're going to start doing the news. Here at Universal Studios, I have a show. It's called Stay Tuned Now, and it's on NBC, and we are going to spend the next hour going through as much news as we can possibly fit into the show with as much nuance as we can also pile on there. So today, our big obsession is really what's going to happen next with Cuba. It does feel like, all of a sudden we're seeing the president come back from this trip, this bilateral in Beijing. How it went, that, there are those that say it was great in the Trump administration, and yet there are those at Wall Street, or there are those that are watching what's happening in the Pacific that are like, Taiwan came up a lot, and the United States was kind of put on the spot when it comes to Taiwan. And, the very forward stance by Xi Jinping. So I don't know what that means, but we are going to be talking to some geopolitics experts about that. And then, so we got Cuba. We're going to be leading with Cuba because that seems like something may be imminent. And it may be an indictment, maybe something else. And then we've got some fun stuff happening at the end of the show that I can't wait for you guys to watch. It's very cute. 30 seconds. Okay, so 30 seconds. Here we go. I'm going to just put this over here. Then we're going to start position B to G.
Staying at B.
Actually, we're staying at B. Okay. What up, Irish?
Staying at B, right?
All right, 10 seconds to showtime. Here we go. Everybody have a wonderful show. We'll see you guys during commercial break.
4, 3.
Hey there, I'm Gotti Schwartz, and tonight, as the president is coming back to the United States from China, all of a sudden, the biggest geopolitical question of the moment seems to be whether Cuba might become another Venezuela. It is looking like the Department of Justice wants to indict Cuba's former president, Raul Castro. How they would actually arrest him and put him on trial in the United States, that is still very up in the air, but 2 U.S. officials tell NBC News it's all over this 1996 shooting down of 2 civilian planes that killed 4 Cuban Americans. Remember this?
Now to our other major story tonight, Cuba's shoot-down of 2 small planes piloted by Cuban exiles off Havana's coast. Just weeks ago, the Castro regime seemed to be reaching out to Washington. But tonight, relations are very troubled once again.
Now, the move against Raul, who is Fidel Castro's brother, would come during what seems to be a full court press by the Trump administration, pushing to force Cuba to meet U.S. demands. It's a mix of harsh sanctions, a de facto blockade of oil and fuel shipments that have led to power outages. And just yesterday, the CIA director, John Ratcliffe, traveled to Havana for talks with top officials. President Trump was asked about the indictment earlier today.
On a different subject, on Cuba, reporting that Raul Castro could be indicted by the DOJ, I believe.
Well, I don't want to comment on that. I'll let DOJ comment on it. But they need help, as you know. And you talk about a declining country. They are really a nation or a country in decline. So we're going to see. We have a lot to talk about on Cuba, but not maybe for today.
Now let's bring in Ryan Riley, who's been following this for us. Ryan, I imagine this is something that the DOJ has been considering over the last 3 decades. Why now, and what could their case look like?
Yeah, it's really interesting because it sort of came about in the past few months when the Southern District of Florida, the U.S. Attorney's Office down there, sort of opened up this broad investigation looking for what potential charges they could bring against members of the Cuban regime. And this is sort of the case that they ended up landing on. There had been a lot of political pressure, including from members of Congress, to bring charges in connection with the specific incident. And this ended up being the case that they landed on. It has the value of not having the statute of limitations that you normally have to deal with in cases that don't involve, the death of individuals. So that's a factor that they didn't have to really consider here. This was a case that could last, even though it dates back 3 decades, they have the ability to bring forward these charges.
And Ryan, we heard President Trump talking repeatedly in the past about how Cuba could be next after the capture of Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro. Do we have any indication on where any sort of back-channel talks may stand with Cuban officials? I mean, it's not every day that the CIA publicly posts pictures of their director in Havana meeting with people. What can we glean about those meetings?
Yeah, that was, a really unique moment, especially just given the decades of history between the two countries. And, having him on Cuban soil was really something that was, I think, really took your breath away in some instances. I think that, we obviously there's been this pressure campaign, but when you look at what's happened in other countries and how the Trump administration has sort of been pairing law enforcement action with military action, right? And you look at the case of Maduro, when they went forward and seized him in this military operation based on the criminal charges that were pending against him in the United States. That obviously, you wonder whether or not that's going to be what they could do here. But you're talking about, a 94-year-old. It's unclear how exactly this case will ultimately be resolved, how that's going to work, because obviously, the Cuban regime isn't just going to want to hand over someone in this sort of instance, no matter how much pressure they're under, you wouldn't think.
What is Cuba saying about all this?
Yeah, they've pushed back a little bit. Some of their communications have been limited, but this has really been a crisis, obviously, in Cuba right now with, the energy. The blockade has been a major issue. So they are feeling the pressure. And the United States seems to believe that the regime essentially will collapse in the course of the next year. And so I think they're upping all of that pressure. But, they haven't been too forthcoming with how, what the next action is going to be exactly. They've somewhat limited in their comments on it.
Yeah, it seems like the ball could be in their court. Ryan Riley, thank you so much. And joining us now is Brian Fonseca from the Institute for Public Policy at Florida International University. Brian, great to see you. Take us back really fast to 1996. We saw that clip there, but what was going on when that plane was shot down?
Yeah, so this took place in February of 1996. And again, there were 3 planes that were operated by Brothers to the Rescue. Brothers to the Rescue was an incredibly important civil society organization based out of South Florida. It ran missions up along the coast looking for rafters that may be stranded at sea in an effort to try to get them help. Over the course of their tenure, they increased their pressure on sort of Cuba as part of an exile movement, to put pressure on Cuba in the hopes that there would be some type of opening, or at least bring the United States into putting pressure on Cuba. That particular moment was one of the most defining moments in U.S.-Cuban relations at the time, and certainly is one of the most consequential historical memories for the Cuban-American exile community, mostly residing in South Florida.
And Brian, the CIA director traveling to Cuba to meet with top officials there yesterday, that raised a lot of eyebrows. And today, with the backdrop of a possible indictment or an indictment coming down the road, knowing that's in play And we just saw this meeting. What do you think was going on behind the scenes?
Yeah, I mean, first and foremost, I think it's incredibly telling. This is certainly Washington signaling that is looking to go beyond economic coercion in diplomatic pressure. It may be setting the conditions for the possible use of other instruments of American national power in an effort to disrupt the regime. I think the way in which the United States made this very visible, having the CIA director sort of pose for pictures and sort of post those publicly online, as you pointed out, is extraordinary. And I think part of that is also, again, a part of the message that Washington is signaling is that we're looking to move beyond that pressure. At the same time, it's always consistent historically that intelligence channels often open up when there's an expectation of some transformative change. And I think that may be also at play here as well.
Interesting, yeah. Because, I mean, the visit just came one day after Cuba's energy minister said that oil supplies had been exhausted. You got to look at it, though, with the historical context. On one hand, it seems like very desperate times. On the other hand, this is an island that has been in the shadow of, you know, the Cold War, well after the Cold War, for half a century, right off our coast. They've held out for so long in other dire circumstances. How dire is the situation right now?
Oh, it's incredibly dire. And as you pointed out earlier, though, it's important to know that next week on May 20th, that's the anniversary of Cuban independence, 1902, May 20th, 1902. And so there's some symbolism there as well. And again, this is coming across against the backdrop of an incredibly dire economic situation in Cuba. And this is after secondary sanctions were placed on international actors that might be helping sustain the economy in Cuba. And so, again, I think that sort of the symbolism of the CIA director, May 20th coming up, there's a lot of moving parts right now. And certainly the United States is signaling it's going further.
Yeah, there is a lot of reporting out there that May 20th is definitely the date to circle in all of this. On top of all of those nationwide blackouts and the widespread protests in Cuba, what are you hearing from people in Cuba right now? What's happening on the ground?
I mean, the situation, as we pointed out, is dire. You know, what I'm getting from the sort of community that I'm tapped into is that it's untenable, that Cubans on the island are desperate for change. They're desperate to move past sort of a failed revolution that has consumed the island for decades, and they're looking for change. And I think that, again, this is where the United States is trying to push the island towards.
And Brian Fonseca, I do want to talk about a picture that, you know, anybody that follows Latin American politics, they did a double take, did a triple take. I don't know if we have it here, but it looks like it's Marco Rubio, I believe on Air Force One, wearing a tracksuit, wearing that Nike tracksuit. And it's a pretty recognizable tracksuit because it's the same type of tracksuit that Nicolas Maduro was wearing when he was captured. Now, Tom Llamas, he pressed Marco Rubio about it and asked him, was this on purpose? Was this some sort of message? Marco Rubio said it wasn't. But when you saw that image, what went through your mind?
I mean, I certainly thought there was a lot of trolling involved here. You know, but of course, could it be, you know, symbolic that, hey, you know, Castro, we're coming for you too, or Cuba, Diaz-Canel, we're coming for you as well. I mean, there's a lot coming out of the White House right now. It's certainly trolling 101 for sure, but could it possess a little bit more symbolism, messaging that Secretary of State is doing? You know, perhaps, but we'll have to wait and see.
A weird world of fashion, I don't know, diplomacy, I guess. Brian Fonseca, thank you so much. And meanwhile, the president is back home after that historic trip to China, declaring his meeting with Chinese President Xi a success. But Wall Street right now and those watching tensions rise in the Pacific, they seem a little iffy on where things stand right now. It's a classic case of he said, she said, specifically on just how much of a controversy of Taiwan came up with the U.S. put on the spot over whether they would be supplying more weapons to the island that China claims as their own. But as the two presidents said their goodbyes, the war in Iran is once again coming back into focus. And here's NBC's Tom Llamas with more on how these historic talks left off.
Tonight, China rolling out the red carpet for President Trump until the very last moment. The president with a fist pump boarding Air Force One, capping off a whirlwind summit here in Beijing and revealing more about his high-stakes meeting with China's President Xi, including on Iran, saying he did not ask China to pressure the Iranian regime to open the Strait of Hormuz.
I didn't ask him to put pressure because, I don't need favors. I think he will. I think automatically he'd like to see it opened up. He gets about 40% of his energy or his oil from that, from the strait. We get none.
Saying they had similar views.
We feel very similar, right? We want that to end. We don't want them to have a nuclear weapon. We want the straits open.
And tonight, President Trump revealing he could support a 20-year halt to Iran's nuclear program, but that Iran must end all of its nuclear enrichment, something the Iranian regime is refusing to do.
20 years is enough, but the level of guarantee from them was not enough. In other words, it's got to be a real 20 years.
On trade, the president looking to boost American businesses, bringing top American CEOs, now touting new Chinese orders of U.S. goods, including American agriculture.
The farmers are going to be very happy. They're going to be buying billions of dollars of soybeans.
And Boeing tonight describing a very successful trip, reopening the China market, receiving an initial commitment for 200 aircraft. China announcing they've reached new common understandings with the U.S., but has not given any further details. All of it after President Xi took President Trump on a tour of the gardens inside Chinese Communist Party headquarters. And the president touting the relationship at tea.
He's a man I respect greatly, become really a friend.
What did they accomplish? Well, I think the base minimum we could talk about in terms of accomplishment is some stability. We can say that perhaps things are less confrontational, at least for now.
But no progress so far on U.S. efforts to secure the release of Jimmy Lai, a pro-democracy publisher and critic of China's Communist Party, convicted of violating a national security law.
I brought up Jimmy Lai, and I would say the response to that was not positive.
Tom Yamas, thank you. Let's bring in John Zinn from the Brookings Institution's China Center and former senior CIA China analyst. Good to see you. First, this massive elephant in the room here, Taiwan. He straight up pressed the president, President Trump, for an answer on whether the United States was going to go through with these arms deals with Taiwan. Let's listen to what some of President Trump said on Air Force One about Taiwan.
On Taiwan, he does not want to see a fight for independence because that would be a very strong confrontation. And I heard him out. I didn't make a comment on it. I heard him out. I have a lot of respect for him.
What about the arms sales to Taiwan?
I'll make a determination over the next fairly short period.
Would the U.S. defend Taiwan if it came to it?
I don't want to say. I'm not going to say that. There's only one person that knows that. You know who it is? Me.
I want to get your take. What does this say about the dynamics of the relationship right now?
Yeah, I mean, I think the fact that the Taiwan issue came up is unsurprising in many ways. I think especially after the Trump administration, after the leaders met in Busan, South Korea at the end of last year and said that Taiwan had not come up in the conversation between Trump and Xi, I think Xi was very eager to bring this up, especially because right after the meeting, the Trump administration announced what was really a historic arms sale to Taiwan totaling $10 billion, right? And over $10 billion, and contained a lot of really useful kit for Taiwan. And I think that really irritated the Chinese. And so I think they are trying to foreclose the possibility of another arms sale along those lines, right? And this issue is, of course, very close to near and dear to Xi Jinping's heart. So I think it's unsurprising that he really wanted to deliver a message on this. I think what the Trump administration is trying to do overall is signal that there is continuity on Taiwan policy. I think that's what they're trying to do. But I think the fact that the president indicated that he listened to Xi's position without necessarily re-articulating the long-standing U.S. policy going back to decades, it seems like a missed opportunity not to reinforce that position with Xi Jinping directly.
Yeah, well, we'll see what he does. Yeah, I mean, he said that maybe there was going to be a decision sometime soon, but, you know, it does seem as though maybe it's this trip, maybe it's something else. there are big weapons deals that have been held up by this. Not just this $14 billion arms package that is imminent, that, already is basically got the sign off and is on hold because of this, but all the way going back to, F-16s and the resupply of a lot of their defensive capabilities. I mean, where do those deals stand right now? And really, is it just the president given the okay that those will be on the move to Taiwan?
Yeah, it's not just that. I mean, there are a number of issues at play here. Number one is just that my understanding is that there is just a backlog in these arms sales, right? It just takes a long time to get these things through the pipeline and actually get them on the ground to Taiwan. And even with the last arms sale, as consequential and significant as it was in many ways, it was tied up in China's legislature until just about a week ago, right? They are just as polarized on the island right now. And so there was a real fight in the legislature with real opposition from the opposition party to going forward with such a large arms package. That has been unlocked now. And so that is part of the issue that's at play here, both our capacity to actually supply it and then Taiwan's capacity to actually ingest these capabilities.
Do you get the sense that China is closer to taking some sort of action in Taiwan after this trip, or are they more deterred?
No, I think right now they are actually pretty comfortable with both the cross-strait dynamic and with the overall all bilateral dynamic with the United States. I think that, she is serious about not handing down the Taiwan issue from generation to generation, but I don't think he feels urgency about the issue right now. I think for Xi, he understands that any kind of, military action against Taiwan would be gambling with everything China's accomplished since the death of Mao Zedong, and that this is still a crisis to be avoided rather than an opportunity to be sought. And I think one of the most important data points in my mind is the fact that Xi has really taken a sledgehammer to his own high command. We did a study with CSIS, and as many as over 53% of the general officers in China's high command are missing or have been dismissed, right? And it's kind of like when you do a home renovation, you don't do that in a moment of insecurity. You don't start demolition until you feel like you've got some security and padding. And I think right now, because of how China is managing the United States and because of the cross-strait dynamic right now, I think Xi feels pretty comfortable with the situation. He is serious about this over the longer term and really wants to get his military ready for this kind of contingency, but it is not a today or tomorrow problem.
Interesting. And obviously looming over all of this is Iran. It seems as though both countries want the Strait of Hormuz open. But when we're talking about arms deals and we're talking about the United States potentially selling arms to Taiwan, you got to wonder, Iran wants Chinese weaponry. Do you think that that is going to come into the calculus here?
Not necessarily. I think from China's perspective, I think Iran, as much as we in Washington are understandably consumed with every gyration of what's going on in the Strait of Hormuz, I think for the Chinese side, this is really in their peripheral vision, right? They are concerned about this. They don't like it. But I think what we've seen from them is a real hesitation to get too deeply involved in this set of issues in the Middle East because of how messy it is. So they do have a long-standing relationship with Iran, but I would argue they actually have more consequential relationships with the Gulf state, right? They have a more diversified relationship, better technology. Yeah, so they've got a lot more going on there. So I think there's real caution on their end.
Yeah, great point. John Zinn, really appreciate your insight. Thank you. Meanwhile, in the Middle East, Iran is saying that it has no trust in the United States to hash out a lasting peace deal to end the war, with Iran's foreign minister telling reporters that Tehran is interested in negotiating with Washington only if talks are serious. Meanwhile, President Trump blasted Iran's latest proposal this morning on Air Force One, and it's all coming as the region is still very unstable. There are reports that Saudi Arabia and the United Arab Emirates are striking back at Iran, and Courtney Cuby has the latest.
Gotti, the situation between the U.S. and Iran remains essentially at a stalemate right now. President Trump with some harsh words for Iran on the flight back from China, including saying that he was very unhappy with the most recent offer from Iran for some sort of a peace deal. Now, Gotti, while he was disparaging of recent media reports about how Iran's conventional military capabilities have been destroyed, or even more so, how they have not all been destroyed, in fact, he did acknowledge acknowledged that the U.S. military took out about 70 to 75% of the total targets that they wanted to go after during the war with Iran, and acknowledged that it was possible the U.S. could go back in and finish the job. That being said, there is no indication at this point that the president has made a decision to do so, but if he does, the U.S. military has spent the time during the ceasefire not only enforcing the blockade, but also reinforcing the military that they had forward. There's now 2 carrier strike groups there in the region. They have basically reset many of their capabilities, brought in a fresh carrier air wing. So if in fact the president were to decide that he wants to restart major combat operations against Iran, he has the ability to do so, and potentially even the ability to accelerate over where they were when the war ended and that ceasefire began several weeks ago. Now here's the thing, Gotti. U.S. stockpiles still remain low, and specifically when it comes to things like the most advanced interceptor weapons. That's a real concern for the U.S. military because Iran has shown that they maintain a stockpile of ballistic missiles and drones. And of course, there's still the situation in the Strait of Hormuz, which also remains at a stalemate. CENTCOM, the U.S. Central Command, announcing today that they have turned around at least 75 ships as part of that blockade that is denying ships access to or from ports in Iran. And they have so far disabled at least 4 ships that were trying to make their way from or to some of those Iranian ports. Now, the foreign minister of Iran today also disparaging of the efforts to find some sort of a negotiated peace deal here, saying that there is no trust between Iran and the United States, and citing the fact that the U.S. has actually attacked Iran not once but twice while engaged in negotiations during the Trump administration. Gotti?
Thank you so much, Courtney. And turning now to an explosion at a lumber mill in Maine. Officials say at least 11 people have been hurt, including 1 in critical condition. Firefighters and emergency crews responding to that explosion. As you can see, there's some of the aftermath on your screen right there. Take a quick listen to what the co-owner of the mill had to say after the blast.
But all employees, the most important thing I'm so thankful for, are accounted for. Buildings can be replaced, employees cannot. And the fire department has done a tremendous job, and I thank them for everything that they have done.
Now let's bring in Stephen Romo to tell us a little bit more about this explosion. So, Stephen, what's the latest here?
Yeah, Gotti, this fire was just ferocious. That plume of smoke, even at tens of thousands of feet in the atmosphere, was so thick that local meteorologists were picking it up on their Doppler radar. And the fire continued to burn for hours. This is about 40 miles south of Bangor, Maine. So it was mostly volunteer firefighters who were responding, especially at the beginning of all of this. The lumber mill, it's a family-owned business. It's Robbins Lumber Yard. We heard from one of the co-owners who said that all of the employees were accounted for, but could not elaborate on whether any of the injured were her workers. We know it wasn't just lumber that was burning there. You can see what a densely wooded area it is. We heard from the fire marshal that there are also there are structures at that business that were also burning, just an intense wall of flames when they got there. Just a small image of what they had to deal with pretty much throughout the day today, Gotti.
Yeah, and in such a rural area, I mean, so many people hurt. How are those who were hospitalized doing?
Yeah, a very difficult situation for a long time today. We were trying to pin down that number of those hurt. The latest reporting is that 11 people were hurt. We know a nearby level 1 trauma center said it was expecting 10 patients to be brought there. Now, this is described as a mass casualty event, meaning multiple people were hurt in an incident over just a short period of time. We know life flight helicopters were spotted around the area as well. And the conditions of these patients, it's not clear right now, but the type of response we saw here, that usually indicates very serious injuries to those affected. We're still waiting to get the latest word on this today, but when asked, officials said their focus was getting that fire out and keeping people out of the area, and we still await those updates.
Yeah, we await those updates. And a cause of the fire, right? Do we know how this thing started?
No, not as of yet. They haven't given us an indication of the cause of that fire yet. But Gotti, some of those first volunteer firefighters on the scene, they posed posted online about an explosion that happened while they were fighting that fire. So a fire at a lumberyard, that is not so hard to imagine. There's, of course, a lot of fuel in that surrounding area, as we see in this video. But an explosion that these volunteer firefighters were posting about, that is a much bigger question mark of what may have caused that explosion. A lot of people asking that question tonight, something that we continue to follow, Gotti.
Stephen Romo, thank you so much. And don't go anywhere. Up next, another mistrial and the third retrial for Harvey Weinstein's rape case in New York. So is there going to be a fourth trial? What we're learning there. Plus, stealing identities just hit a new low. People using AI to digitally alter themselves over another person's picture, then posting it as their own. Stay tuned for that. And also, we're trying a little something new here. If you see this QR code, you can scan it. You can scan it right through, and you can chat with us live, two-way street, during the news. That will take you behind the scenes, stream it on YouTube, TikTok, Twitch. Swing by and join the conversation.
Hey, here we go. Let's see, what are we talking about? Yes, the Cool Kids Club. Mac Dizzy, that's right. Let's see. Jansen, I doubt that. Lumber mill, great point. Oh yeah, under construction. Gulf states are agreeing to trade oil in yuan. Yeah, that is a very, very big topic of conversation. I believe UAE and Saudi Arabia, they are strongly considering that. There was this exclusive contract that I think we had with Saudi Arabia to use, dollars, petrodollars, and they've been kind of holding off on signing those agreements. And then there's this thing called M-Branch or M-Bank or something like that, that is basically like this digital alternative to the US dollar that is very heavily backed by, this Chinese push to convert petrodollars into their currency. So yeah, that's a very, very good point. It's something we should probably talk about. That's a good idea for a segment. Maybe we should revisit that next week. We got Steve Patterson.
Hey guys.
In the studio here.
What's happening? How are you?
All right, we're gonna be chatting about this crazy weather coming up. 10 seconds, here we go.
Hey, welcome back. Here are some other headlines we are watching tonight. A commander of an Iran-backed militia has been charged with plotting attacks in New York City, Los Angeles, as well as Arizona. Mohammed al-Saudi is accused of trying to hire an undercover member of law enforcement to carry out the attacks. And according to the indictment, he's also accused of planning at least 18 attacks in Europe, all in retaliation for the U.S. and Israel's attacks on Iran. And South Carolina's Attorney General says they could pursue the death penalty in the Alec Murdaugh retrial, saying all legal options are back on the table as the mistrial heads for a retrial. This is all after Murdaugh's murder convictions were overturned by South Carolina's Supreme Court because of improper conduct by a county clerk. And a looming strike could bring one of the nation's busiest commuter rail systems to a halt. The Long Island Railroad and union workers are still negotiating a new contract ahead of a potential strike this weekend. The MTA already announced contingency plans, including shuttle buses and ferry options, but they are urging affected New Yorkers to work from home if possible and to expect delays and heavy traffic. And NOAA is investigating after a video went viral on Instagram. It appears to show a man on a California pier. This is hard to watch, trying to hit a sea lion with a pole. Sea lions are protected animals under the law, so this should have some serious consequences. And a bear was spotted on campus at the University of California, Davis. Authorities issued warnings asking students and staff to stay clear of the area while wildlife officials track that animal. Officials say no one was hurt. And it is getting hotter across the country, which means we are bracing for more wildfires. Firefighters out in Kansas are battling some flames fueled by dry weather. Look at all of that. And wildfires in Texas are burning through structures like a railroad bridge. Millions across Texas, in the Midwest, and parts of California are right now facing wildfire threats all through this weekend. And it comes after we saw massive dust storms in Texas and North Dakota yesterday. You can see all that debris flying around, making it almost impossible to see the roads. Let's bring in NBC's Steve Patterson. So, Steve, what are the biggest threats for the fires with these winds right now?
Yeah, it's wild. It's the middle of May, and already we're seeing really fires across the country. Besides the ones you mentioned, the panhandle of Florida, Utah, Arizona, parts of California. But really, the epicenter seems to be a part you might be familiar with, eastern New Mexico, into the Texas panhandle. There's something like 50,000 total acres or so of fires that are currently burning. This one in the Texas panhandle that you're looking at right now. I spoke to a woman named Shelby. She's there. That fire, 14,000 acres. 40% contained, but the containment numbers keep fluctuating because the conditions are so poor, right? It's this cocktail of low humidity, dry brush, and then temperatures that keep rising. This woman was out of her house. I did a Zoom with her earlier today. She said, yeah, evacuations are over. We got everybody out. And as I was talking to her, she had to go because the fire was encroaching on her house again. So that's what people there are dealing with. That will, though, may shift. Brace yourself this weekend for California. Big fire watch in Central Valley in Northern California, so like Sacramento all the way down through Modesto, which is like the big sort of bread basket, salad basket of the country because of all the farmlands. But it's dry there, and again, it's heating up, and so fire danger ever present.
Yeah, fire danger ever present. And yeah, that video that we were just showing, I'm not sure if we can pull that back up, but you can see, I mean, the winds are still present there, right? These winds are crazy, and they're continuing to blow.
Yeah, those dust storms are part of the same system that's driving the wildfires, right? So if you speak to people, and I spoke to Shelby, who lives in that region, she's like, look, dust storms, this kind of year, this part of the year, pretty typical. Like, people deal with them, they last a few seconds, they bluster, visibility goes down to like a quarter mile or so. People deal with it, they get off the road, and then they're back on the road. But because, again, of the particularly bad system bringing the fire, they've sort of stuck around.
Yeah.
So, you know, obviously a danger.
Dust storm like that with a little bit of fire becomes a blast furnace.
Yeah.
Steve Patterson, thank you so much. And it's another mistrial for Harvey Weinstein, the disgraced mogul's third New York rape trial, ending in a deadlocked jury following more than 2 days of deliberations. Here's what some of the jurors told our team outside court today.
There were varying opinions. We considered everything, all the evidence that we had, all the testimony that we had, and yeah, we made our decisions.
We tried really hard. We tried really hard. And there were people who had convictions and people who, you know, it's mostly an emotional thing.
For more, let's go to NBC's correspondent Chloe Malas. Chloe?
Hey there, Gotti. Well, this mistrial was declared after the jury sent 5 notes to the judge. And those last 2 specifically saying that they were deadlocked, that they were not going to be coming to any sort of a consensus. And so you saw the judge read something called the Allen charge, which is also known as the dynamite charge, actually, which basically means go back and deliberate and try to come to some sort of common ground to reach a verdict one way or another. But the judge this afternoon, after the second note out of those 5, saying, you know, thank you for your service. Go ahead and get to your weekend. You guys have been a great jury. Now, the prosecutors, they wanted that jury to continue to deliberate, but obviously Harvey Weinstein's team thrilled, releasing a statement saying that they really hope to get on to more serious things, that they think that the New York prosecutors need to focus on actual crimes, because again, they are maintaining Harvey Weinstein's innocence here. I have covered all of Harvey Weinstein's criminal trials, all of them in New York. I also covered the one in Los Angeles. So the big question that I am getting today, Gotti, is what does this mean for Harvey Weinstein? Is he going to walk out a free man? Well, no, he's not, because last summer he was found guilty on 1 charge, and the judge still has not sentenced him. So he will get some sort of a prison sentence for that. He will serve that, and then once that's done, in theory, be extradited to Los Angeles, where, due to a separate guilty conviction on a separate trial years ago, he is facing 16 years behind prison bars, and his team is currently appealing that. I do want to tell you that NBC News, we received a statement from Jessica Mann. She is the woman that had been at the center of this trial. It was her allegations, and I want to read to you in part what she said, Gotti. She says, Today's decision to declare a mistrial doesn't in any way detract from the truth I told and the violent crimes Harvey Weinstein committed upon me and so many others. I chose to testify in 3 trials because I am telling the truth. So now the Manhattan District Attorney's Office, Gotti, saying that they are going to weigh their options and be talking to Mann. So could we see this be tried again a 4th time, or will they let the judge go ahead and sentence Harvey for last summer and then let him move on to face his prison sentence in Los Angeles? Gotti?
Chloe Melas, thank you. And coming up, where things stand on the hantavirus outbreak. This is CDC is monitoring a separate Ebola outbreak now in the Democratic Republic of the Congo.
Oh, Ebola. Got it? Nice. All right, let's see. MS, it is not too late. It's never too late. We can fix some stuff. PBS Terra has done some good videos on what? KB, I want to know everything about it. I am very tempted. If I have to watch Cars again in my house, I'm going to freak out. I love Lightning McQueen, but like, come on, Rio, let's move it along. So I think I'm going to just start being like, okay, you guys want to watch TV? We're watching Nova. And we're going to watch this Nova documentary on, you know, quantum entanglement, and just see their little 2-year-old and 4-year-old brains be like, no more Nova, until they become astrophysicists when they grow up. At least that's the plan for now. Hey, what's the prono on the next?
1 minute.
We will be talking about the viruses. Okay. A, right?
30.
All right. Guess what? We're talking, I think there's some light at the end of the tunnel when it comes to this hantavirus thing here in the United States. I'm really hoping. Really hoping. What do you guys think? Are you guys stressing about it?
Stand by. 5,
All right, here we go.
4, 3.
Hey, welcome back. Some good news and some bad news on the stressing out over outbreaks front. First, the good news when it comes to the hantavirus here in the United States. The CDC is now confirming there are no known cases of hantavirus in the United States, while also saying, yes, they are keeping a close eye on at least 41 people across 16 states who may have been exposed to the virus. But the bad news, there is this big Ebola outbreak in the Democratic Republic of Congo. Health officials now say that they are dealing with 246 suspected cases of Ebola, 65 deaths so far. That outbreak happening in a remote province, which the CDC says it is closely monitoring. Let's bring in senior scholar at the Johns Hopkins Center of Health Security, Dr. Amesh Adalja, to talk a little bit more about these health updates. First, the Ebola outbreak, they're always terrifying. How concerned should the public be, though, about what we're seeing right now in the Congo?
It's important to remember that the Congo, the DRC, often has Ebola outbreaks that occur. They are experienced with Ebola outbreaks. This is obviously not the first Ebola outbreak in the DRC. It's in a remote area. There is at least one case that's been imported to Uganda, but this isn't something that we expect to spread into the general population or spread out of Africa. I think it's going to be logistically challenging because it's in a very remote area of the DRC, and the DRC is also a place that's conflict-ridden, very hard to get resources to these Ebola outbreaks, but this is something that likely will be contained. One challenge is it's not the strain that we have a vaccine for or the strain that we have monoclonal antibodies for, so there's less countermeasures there, but it is something that I anticipate will be contained.
That's good to hear. It does seem like, though, this Ebola outbreak, I mean, it spread rapidly at first, at least, with 65 deaths already. How does this compare to other outbreaks? And can you remind us again what happens when you contract Ebola?
So this is a fairly big Ebola outbreak, but certainly not the biggest. Back in 2014, we had tens of thousands of cases occurring in West Africa and places like Liberia, Sierra Leone, and Guinea, which led to importations of cases in certain areas. We had cases in the United States. This is not that. This is in an area that's experienced with Ebola outbreaks. And what happens? You usually will begin with flu-like symptoms like many infectious diseases, fever, chills, muscle aches and pain. And as the virus spreads systemically, it causes your blood vessels to get very, very leaky. Your blood pressure plummets. A lot of losses of fluids from really bad diarrhea can happen. And then in about half of cases, your blood's ability to clot gets really disturbed and you can have hemorrhages or bleeding. That's why it's called a viral hemorrhagic fever, and can have a very high mortality rate, can reach, into the 60 to 90% range if there's no supportive treatment.
Yeah, praying for all those communities that are affected out there. Shifting back to the hantavirus here in the United States, are we headed to the relative clear here, or is that still way down the road?
Well, this is a virus that has a long incubation period, 6 weeks. So we kind of are on that clock to make sure that we get no new cases. And I suspect we may get more cases from those individuals that were evacuated off the ship. But the key thing to look for is, do we get any secondary cases? So some individuals who are in contact with people who disembarked early. Right now, there are 0 cases of secondary cases in the world. That's a good sign, but we still have to wait that 6 weeks to know. I do think that this is a virus that's really constrained in its ability to spread from person to person. So this will not be something that spreads into the general public, but we may see more cases in that group of passengers that were evacuated.
Amesh Adalja, doctor, thank you so much for joining us tonight. And coming up, a Waymo takeover, a look at what's up with autonomous cars that seem to be taking over an Atlanta suburb and acting very confused. All right, 2 minutes. Okay. What are we talking about here?
See reverse.
Cinema? I don't think that's the case. I think a lot of people are worried about what's happening, so we're trying to put it into context. And it sounds like what the doctor is saying, we're going to proceed with caution, but there are reasons to be not optimistic, but calm about what we're seeing so far. Let's see. Yeah, hi. Round and round that roundabout. I mean, artificial intelligence and roundabouts is not a match made in heaven. Let's see. What else? Mac Dizzy, thank you so much. Look, we definitely don't want to over-sensationalize, overhype things out. I mean, especially with hantavirus, I do think that things are looking relatively under control. But it's tough because in the news, you see all these images of the full PPE. We've seen the movies. It's very easy to get very, very scared. And viruses are that great natural disaster that can befall the entire civilization. So good to be prepared, but not over hype any sort of fear. But yeah, are you guys stressed about it? Irresistible, too many diseases running around. We've also got to a point where science is very good at detecting things like that. And so imagine if we would have had our technology when the flu popped up, or when a cold was discovered. People would be freaking out about that stuff. Here we go.
10.
All right, 10 seconds. Coming back right now.
5, 4, 3.
And tonight in The Future of Everything, we are talking about robots seeming to invade a neighborhood in Atlanta. And by robots, we mean empty Waymos endlessly circling a cul-de-sac, driving the neighbors there crazy. Meanwhile, Waymo has recalled more than nearly 4,000 cars for driving into flooded out streets. Tom Costello has a look.
You might call them wayward Waymos, one after another driverless taxis, streaming into several Atlanta cul-de-sacs at virtually all hours of the day and night.
So as more were coming in, more were going out. It was just a constant stream of coming in around the circle.
After roughly 50 of them showed up last weekend, the annoyed neighbors put out a traffic turtle, but that only led to longer backups.
One of them almost did run over our cul-de-sac cat, Buddy, and so that that was the final straw.
The robo-taxis appear to be in a holding pattern, waiting for their next assignment. Waymo tells NBC News it has already worked with our partner to address this routing behavior. It's the latest Waymo speed bump, coming just days after the company recalled nearly 4,000 robo-taxis for software fix after some cars in Texas and California drove into flooded streets and stalled. In recent years, Waymos have also failed to yield to school buses and caused rush hour gridlock.
Nothing we are doing today with automated vehicle technology is safe enough. It's got to be better tomorrow. And that is the change in trajectory we need for vehicle safety in America today.
Waymo says it's already identified a software fix for the flooding issue, and it's refining its operations in extreme weather, and says it's 13 times safer than humans in crashes involving pedestrians.
Tom Costello, thank you. And AI is making it easier than ever to create and edit content online, right? But some Black creators say those same tools are now being used to steal, alter, and repost their work without credit or consent. We talked to one creator whose viral experience is now putting a spotlight on that issue.
For influencer, former America's Next Top Model contestant and entrepreneur Tatiana Elizabeth, her content isn't just an aesthetic, it's personal.
I don't just post to post. It's something that I kind of consider somewhat of my creative outlet.
So when she saw a familiar image online, something felt off.
Someone messaged me the image and said, "Hey girl, this is weird." I said, "Oh wait, this is a real person."
Another influencer had posted an AI-edited photo of Tatiana at the U.S. Open with her face on Tatiana's body. Imitation is the best form of flattery. Yeah. And then there's literally like taking a face and putting it over somebody else's. That's next level.
Yeah, and she didn't change. I have a tattoo on my arm. It says, "I Heart New York." I had my watch on, I had my jewelry. She added a necklace.
Tatiana says the post wasn't just copying her image.
Tease her, she teases me.
It was trying to sell a lifestyle that wasn't real.
She tagged Miami Open, which was currently going on. So I'm like, oh wait, she's trying to trick people into thinking that she was somewhere that she wasn't. She didn't notify people that this was a fake image. This is her trying to portray something that she didn't live.
They are now stealing my audio.
It's part of a growing trend. Creators saying their content is being lifted, replicated, and sometimes even performing better in someone else's hands. Some are even going as far as to create pages with the sole purpose of recreating viral videos with AI-generated influencers.
Understand why DoorDash, well, I guess fired you, and why you're blocked from the app.
You can go search up those creators and see people stitching them as if they're real creators.
Click Instant AI Video, then you will see this window.
Meanwhile, social media platforms are releasing tools and features that make it easier to remix photos, videos, and even entire identities, making it incredibly difficult to sort what's real from what's fake.
Do you ever feel like you're doing everything right, but something is still off?
For some Black creators, there's another layer. There's also the obvious, like, you're Black, she's white, right? Do you think that there's a racial component to this?
I'm not putting that on her. However, I think that it is your responsibility as a content creator to be cognizant of people in general. And more specifically, if you know that you're dealing with someone who might be at more of a disadvantage or might be a minority. So you have to be very cognizant as a white woman to understand, I just snatched her head off of this body and I'm a white girl. Like, it's like, you can't do that.
Tatiana says the other influencer involved, Lauren Blake, apologized to her in her DMs. Lauren also went on to post this public apology to her Instagram stories, claiming she takes full responsibility for what appears on her platforms and that she was deeply sorry for the hurt her post caused, but blamed a third-party AI content agency she had been working with. Lauren declined a request for an interview. As for the platforms, they're starting to introduce AI labels and reporting tools, but the enforcement of the policies aren't always consistent. Both TikTok and Meta told us what happened to Tatiana is against their policies, and they're fighting the rise of misleading AI content in different ways. But in a world where content can be created in seconds, Tatiana says what matters most is the feeling that can't be replicated.
AI cannot replace feeling. I hope that we don't get to the point where everyone is just robotic and everything is just made from a computer, because I feel like that's not what being human is about.
We hope the same. Thank you so much. And still to come, how YouTube videos helped a football player on his rise to the NFL. But first, you got to see this. Forget the horses for a second, because the competition in Baltimore is getting a little shellfish. Just ahead of the Preakness, locals gathered around for the annual Crab Derby. At Fadley's Seafood, the crabs went claw to claw for the win, and although those little athletes, they move a little bit slower, the crowd was just as into it. Look at those hats. Who could do with that? You feel crabby about that pun? I feel crabby about the pun coming out of the mouth.
Clear.
That was a good one. And those derby hats are great. All right, guess what? The rest of that show is on tape, so we're gonna have to monitor to see when it pops up. But we figured out, actually, Kevin figured out, I'm not gonna take credit for it, how to route it through the knock, so you'll be able to see the end of the show. Don't get the crabs drunk afterwards? Yeah. Agreed. I hope those crabs survived. I hope the winners got to live. Kevin is a genius. Hi. I agree 100%. Anyway, did you guys weigh in on whether or not you would ride in Waymos? Hold on, did I see? I have to travel 2 hours to a dentist. Would you take a Waymo? That's the question. Take the fun out of doom scrolling. Maybe most of what we see online is not, I mean, maybe it's not as outrageous as we are like prodded to think it is. Maybe things are okay. Maybe the world is going to be okay. Who knows? Maybe it's not, but maybe it will. No. SML, hard no on the Waymo, huh? I'd try it once. Hi. Wait. Hi, you haven't tried a Waymo? I'd think of all people, you would have jumped straight in just from a technological standpoint. Helmuth, thank you so much for asking. My kids are doing great. When do I have quality time with them? As much time as humanly possible. In fact, little Rio, he was the assistant director at his school today, and he apparently said that everyone should have a pizza party. He's 2. And that everybody is going to get some sort of like popsicle party too, and they're going to have a Cars themed day. So we got to plan that, but it sounds very, very exciting over at his school. Let's see. Absolutely not. SML, great to know. Haven't been in a position to try one. You should. I mean, I've driven in a few, actually. It's pretty interesting how quickly like you get acclimated to the technology, and that's one of the things that kind of spooks me out the most about it. Big trucks scare me more. Tell me about it. I've been in a semi that drove. Hey, welcome back. You ever learn how to do something from a YouTube
Oh,
tutorial?
shoot.
Well,
Go
the
on,
first
watch the show.
Japanese-born
Okay,
player ever signed by an NFL team can thank
for watching.
YouTube for his success. NBC's Dana Griffin explains his unprecedented path to the league.
Snap, kick is up and good, and Hawaii has done it!
This game-winning field goal at last year's season opener between University of Hawaii and Stanford.
Unbelievable, gritty performance.
Was the first time many heard the name Kansei Matsuzawa. That viral kick earning him a new nickname to match his unique journey.
And he's got the hardest nickname for a kicker I've ever seen, the Tokyo Toe.
So after the Stanford kick, Tokyo Toe just kind of stuck.
Yeah.
Kansei is the first Japanese-born player to be signed by an NFL team.
Raiders.
This was the moment Kansei got a call from the Las Vegas Raiders, a team he's held close to his heart for years. He played soccer through high school, but at 19, while on a trip to America, it was his first in-person NFL game, a Raiders matchup that inspired Kansei to switch sports.
The Raiders, the same team that has now signed you.
Yep.
That's a full circle moment.
Yes.
Full circle because he taught himself how to kick an American football by watching YouTube and improved his English by watching American TV shows like Friends.
YouTube has a bunch of resources right now, and anybody can reach out for free. And then I was like, if I want to go to the NFL, I have to learn from the best.
He watched Seattle Seahawks kicker Jason Myers, who he later met after his story went viral.
How bad were you at kicking the football when you first started?
I can only kick like 15 yards away, and it's not 50, 15.
But he got better, attending Hawking College in Ohio before transferring to Hawaii.
The University of Hawaii has started an all-American campaign for its kicking sensation, Kansei Matsuzawa.
He's already been to rookie minicamp. And now he's focused on strength training.
The thing is, he does this religiously now.
From his calves
Now turn it the other way.
to his core
Come on. Good. Good.
and even his toes.
Give me 8. Finish on that big toe.
He also trains his mind with positive self-talk.
What do you tell yourself in that moment right before you make a kick?
Tell myself like I'm elite. I make this field goal.
Do you think about the crowd?
Never.
Bullshit, bullshit, bullshit. Good job.
Kanze is staying level-headed as he navigates this new challenge, working to make the final Raiders roster come September.
How would it feel to be in the NFL crowd and everyone screaming, Tokyo toe, Tokyo toe?
That'd be amazing. Yep.
Dana Griffin, NBC News.
Tokyo toe, let's go. Dana Griffith, thank you so much. And finally tonight, the star player for the Durham Bulls baseball team has charisma, fast legs, a knack for playing fetch. His name is Champ, and he is the official team's bat dog. NBC's George Solis got to meet him.
Each crack of the bat turns more than just heads in the stands on this field. That flash of black lightning charging towards the diamond isn't some one-trick pony. His name is Champ, a 2-year-old Labrador, and he's the official bat dog of the Durham Bulls.
I can't think of a bat person that I'd be more excited about than a dog.
Owner and trainer Michael O'Donnell recalls pitching a bat dog wasn't exactly a home run.
When you presented this idea of a bat dog, they look at you and just say, "Are you crazy?"
Absolutely, absolutely. Social media quickly proved the idea had legs. Millions have now watched the bat dog in action.
So far, we've hit every major sport. We've hit hockey, we've hit football, we're about to hit golf. It's morphed into so much more.
And it all started on this field.
I proposed on the dugout.
Right here?
Right here, right on top of the dugout on first base side. We had our first date down third base line up in the stands.
A pitch-perfect life. And though his dream of going pro after college didn't come true, life threw him a 4-legged curveball named Ripken.
I needed to find a way to get back into the sport, so I said, what's better than teaching a dog to fetch bats and get back into the sport that I love?
Ripken is Champ's older brother and was the original Bulls' bat dog.
Over. Good boy.
Ripken, much like his brother, became a viral sensation and was beloved by all. But tragically, he passed away last year from a medical condition.
Unfortunately, God had other plans for him, and we lost him a little younger than we had hoped.
But the bat-fetching fervor didn't fall far from the tree.
It's really neat to see him take over and kind of fill those paws and know that he's doing his brother proud.
Here at his dog training facility, O'Donnell and his team are constantly at work. Photos and even the company logo keep Ripken's legacy alive.
I think building that bond and working with your dog every single day is super important.
So we put Champ to the test.
Champ, come. Place. Sit. Good boy.
Back at the ballpark, it's clear, even when the Bulls are off to the races, it's Champ's chase that often steals the show.
I might have had a bad inning that inning, but I come in and I'm mad and I want to throw my glove or something, but I see him and I'm like, I'm just gonna go down and pet him real quick.
And for O'Donnell, it's a full circle moment and proof that on a field, dreams do come true.
Maybe I'm not on the field playing shortstop like I envisioned, but I'm here today with my dogs and we get to play every season here, which is awesome.
George Solis, NBC News, Durham, North Carolina.
Bad or rough? Am I right? Okay. George Solis, thank you so much. That's going to do it for us tonight. I'm Gotti Schwartz. We'll see you here on Monday, but until then, stay tuned to NBC News Now.